Yes, hello. Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Sub, and I'm going to post another video. I just posted a 20-minute video aimed at the Russian Federation. What I speak of is the truth, okay, folks? They've completely banned my wife and I from outside access. All my videos on YouTube have been restricted by the Canadian government and their law enforcement. With the help of the American government and NATO states, Canada's government, and this is what this is going to be about. This video here, it'll be short as well. Canada's government, the Prime Minister and so on, Prime Ministers, excuse me, they all went to their colleagues. I accuse you, Carney, Trudeau, Harper, all of you. You all went and asked for favors from the Dutch Prime Minister of the Netherlands. Trudeau, went to the ICC and used Canadian insiders there, such as a Mr. Kirkpatrick from Ontario, Canada, who was formerly a prosecutor at the prosecutor's office of the criminal courts in Toronto, who was appointed as second highest prosecutor in the ICC in The Hague under Miss Masuda at the time, 6-7 years ago. When my wife and I appealed to the ICC, okay, we were told we had to appeal to the ICC. It was the only place we could go. The Netherlands government, their mission in New York City, told us this based on our allegations. The police here and the federal government on Parliament Hill, along with their provincial colleagues, they use organized criminal gangs, and they've given them technology. I'm sure that some of you have heard about the Hells Angels having access to the Pegasus system. This was designed by the state of Israel, a spyware system. But these systems have been given to the biker gangs, okay, by their colleagues in the police. This is how this happened. Because the police, you see, to some extent are tracked, okay? And what they're doing out there is normally tracked. That tracking is now gone because the police go and threaten to arrest people with evidence against them and the state regardless. It doesn't matter. They don't need to track people anymore. They have absolute freedom by the government of Canada and the opposition parties and their provincial colleagues, Liberals and Conservatives, to actually violate the law and violate the Constitution and threaten people with arrest, okay? I'll give you an example of this. In my last video, I pointed out that after I called Miss Landsman's office a number of times, okay, primarily because no one was answering the phone there, and I wanted to talk to someone human, but however, I did leave messages. Of course, I think that a Nazi SS Waffen, supported by the RCMP and the police, being released freely after a standing ovation in the House of Commons with the Nazi president of the Ukraine, Zelensky, who's a Nazi, I think that it warrants me making the calls, okay? Because the Russians had requested, even though I no longer like the Russians or want nothing to do with them, the bottom line is the Russians had a right to have him extradited to Moscow, regardless of my feelings for the Russian government at this stage, for him to be extradited, okay? And that's was a case point for me. I also pointed out to the Landsman woman on Parliament Hill, her office, and recorded messages. I said, look, Miss Landsman, look at what's going on in Minnesota. I was expecting Canadians to come forward and accuse security of Nazism, okay? And this is, with me, the Nazi thing has been going on since 2009 because neo-Nazi colonial balds tried to gas me in a detention center in Toronto with a barbecue on the roof, sucking in carbon dioxide or monoxide from the barbecue in the roof vent, coming right into my cell, which was right below the roof. Okay, my wife saw the barbecue above the roof of my cell. She was looking at me from the street. I told her where my window was, and then she told me there was a barbecue right above my cell on the roof, which explained why I was getting sick. And on top of all that, the Nazi bastard guards, the balds, had the audacity to play German polka music through the lower vent of my cell that goes downstairs while they were trying to gas me, okay? So this is where all this started. I knew when I got out back in 2012 from detention for my first offense, I knew that I needed to come to Ottawa and start the Nazi security ball rolling. I knew they were Nazis. I knew it was them, Nazi skinheads, as many of you know, okay? I knew. So what I'm saying here is it's been since 2009 that I've been on a war path against neo-Nazi bald colonials. Listen, people, I've identified thousands of them. I identified neo-Nazi colonial balds in the, we'll start with the UK, in England's police, okay, in their Scotland Yard, in their military. And these balds match the descriptions of the ones that gassed me in 2009 in the detention center. One of the things is they have very pale skin, almost albino, and they don't seem to tan, and they're all bald, and they seem to have a problem. These ones here are I'm pointing to in particular because they have different physical characteristics than the balds, people who just simply shave their heads, like men who shave their heads, like Telly Savalas, for example, in that old 70s police show called Kojak, okay? He was bald, okay? These guys are different. These guys have pale white skin. It cannot tan. I note that in all cases of these guys, I have thousands of photos of them, okay? Take note that they cannot grow their hair above their ears. Whenever you see these guys, I'll give you a perfect example. Go to YouTube, look up this couple in the UK. The title of their YouTube video is Ship Happens, right? So it's SHIP Happens, okay? And it's this bald guy and his wife who are rebuilding this 100-foot ex-World War II British patrol boat, okay? Take a good look at him. Take a good look. You're going to see he's bald all the time. Shaves his head right down to the skull, right down to the skin. You will see, look for his hairline. That's what I'm asking you to look for. All right? You can see his hairline, okay? Now, when you go, the balds I'm talking about are pale white. They do not tan. You can tell the ones that don't have this DNA problem because these balds tan. Okay, their skin will tan. The ones I'm talking about, their skin will not tan. Okay, and as I said earlier, they can only grow their hair just below their ears or just slightly above to the back of their ears. You will see that they cannot grow any further hair on their heads. This is why they're bald. Because if they didn't, you would see a bunch of bald, pale whites walking around, okay, with long hair only growing to about just below the crown of their head on the back. And that's as far as it'll go. Because these ones here can't grow hair. They have some form of DNA problem, and they can't tan. These are the ones that came after my wife and I, okay? These ones. They have recruited, you'll see in the United States, the UK, Europe, for example, Western Europe, and in the United States, Canada, the UK, even Australia, that you'll note that all the police recruits people who apply to be policemen, who are what's the word for them, Jen?
Prospects?
No, police recruits. Academy rookies. You will see, and I've seen this, I've studied this over the years, I noticed that more and more recruits going into the police in the United States, Canada, over the years, as well as the UK and Europe and Australia, are all shaving their heads. Okay? They're all shaving their heads because their leaders are neo-Nazi balds. Okay? That's why. Their police chiefs are Nazi balds. Here in Ottawa, they're all shaving their heads. Okay? The police here, they're shaving their heads. Now, these ones here don't have that DNA problem with the hairline. And these ones here don't have a problem tanning. The ones that tan, and even if they shave their heads, you can see the hair follicles right to the front of their forehead. These young police officers who shave their heads, you can see that their hair follicles come right around their ears and right to the front of their heads. You can see them all, which means they have a full head of hair, right? These ones here, you can tell they are not the ones I'm talking of. These are their recruits, okay? And I've explained this before in videos to try to explain it to audiences, but my videos are being cut off by the Canadian government. Most people can't view them unless I give them the exact address, and I'm going to do so again. Now, I gave my address on YouTube already out to some governments. It's Daniel Fitzgerald 3417 is what you have to type in the box, the YouTube box, to get to my videos. And I've given that address out, like I gave it to the Russian Federation, I think 3 weeks ago or a month ago, after I posted 3 videos on YouTube, which you'll see from last month. It's January now, so that would have been early December. And 2 of the videos have no views at all. The last one has 3 views, which means what's going on here is the Nazi skinheads in the police and their Hells Angel gangster buddies and other gang members in the police are blocking people from accessing my videos. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? There's no way that I should have some of my videos on there 4 years old. I've got 3 that are 4 years old that are clearly based upon Nazi policies against my wife and I in our boats, Jacob's Goshen and Jacob's Ladder. Those ones there, I should have tens of thousands of views. They're right in the Holocaust section of YouTube. I should have tens of thousands of views. Okay, I've got under 100 on each one. Why is that, YouTube? Explain that one. So it's very difficult for me to get out statements of information and evidential statements against Canada and its allies. Now let's go back. I have seen these neo-Nazi pale white balds in American military transport planes taxiing down runways in Germany. Okay, I have seen them in the UK military. I have seen these Nazi pale white balds on American aircraft carriers as officers. Okay, they are everywhere. So what it amounts to is that simply we have an alien collective going on in our collective NATO security, in the military and civilian security. Okay, that's what's been going on. Now, NATO governments, including this one here and all those in Parliament, including the Jewish parliamentarians here in Ottawa in the federal legislature, are covering it up. Their Landsman is covering it up. The Israeli government's covering. The Israeli government. Now, here's the interesting part. I would have thought that I would never have seen neo-Nazi colonial pale white tall skinhead balds in the Israeli military and Israeli security. Well, here we go. This is Israel we're talking about, the Jewish state. Now, I captured a video some years back that came out of Israel by an Israeli citizen, okay, a Jew, okay, like me, because I'm partially Jewish. That person played a video of 4 Israeli police cars, okay, going to this location where there was like a concrete overpass bridge of a highway and a street underneath it, okay, going through the underneath part of the tunnel. And this Israeli uniformed policeman with a shaved head, okay, his head shaved, walks up to this young Jewish rabbi dressed in black and white with his hat on and a beard, okay, and starts pushing him up against a wall, just shoving him. Then he turns around, goes back to his police colleagues watching from standing outside their cars, and he turns around and goes back and pushes them again. And in the video, you can see this young Jewish rabbi. He's got his fists clenched at his sides like he wants to hit this satanic Jewish policeman. Lots of videos like that. I have studied lots of videos. I have seen lots of these balds in the police recruited by the pale white tall ones who are their chiefs, okay? And every police officer at every department in Canada has to shave their heads, and they're falling under the command of chiefs who are these balds. Like one of these chiefs in Toronto, who I saw on YouTube over the course of the last week or so in the media, about these 7 or 8 police officers who were caught, okay, red-handed, giving out personal information of Canadian citizens to gang member hitmen, okay? Now, one of these police chiefs down there was a Nazi bald, okay? I saw his video, I put down below it, I put the sentence, speak of the devil, okay? Do you understand? So it's everywhere, okay? And this particular collective is dangerous to all people in the police. The police are no longer legitimate. Here in Ottawa, the RCMP the provincial law enforcement people in Orillia, the OPP, and these guys here, the Toronto police, all of these police are in criminal disrepute. All of them. They're criminals. Okay? Along with they've corrupted their judicial system with gang members in the courtrooms dressed as sheriffs. They have gang members running their jails as guards. Okay? Bald Nazis, Italian mafia, women gangsters. Okay? I'm not kidding. This is the big secret that the federal government of Canada and their opposition and Ontario and other provinces are covering up. They have given the gangs all the jobs. They've given gang members jobs in the civil service. Gang members are in the police. Gang members are in our military in huge numbers, including neo-Nazi colonials and their human recruits, so to speak, because of the DNA issue. It's that bad in our country. It's even worse than that. And this government on Parliament Hill and this prime minister, they are lying to the Canadian people. Okay. They now are going after the gangs, and the government of Canada and their provincial flunkies, elected premiers, are all allowing gangs in the police and Nazi colonial balds, which are in the Calgary Police Service. I saw them, colonial Nazi balds, biker gangs in Edmonton. These are in the police there. They're in the police in Sydney, Nova Scotia, Halifax, the RCMP everywhere across Canada, including headquarters here, and their division on MacArthur as well. These are all being run by gang members and neo-Nazi colonials at the top of the ladder. Okay, that's what's going on in Canada. It's right across the country. So if this is true, then I think that people can say to me, well, yes, it is true, because look at how they are stopping me, from going public on this. How Russia's government here, okay, and the Chinese government on Patrick Street, the Russians on Charlotte Street, and other governments here are all covering this up for these people on Parliament Hill because they are of the same mind, okay? The Russians and Chinese here have done nothing but protect Canada. They're telling me to bring them evidence, right? The Russians telling me to bring them documents and evidence, right? This is what they're saying to me. Okay, while they won't say nothing to the Canadian government about the evidential documents I've given the Russians won't say anything. So again, it goes back to what I said in my recording in the last video. Why are the Russians telling me to continue bringing them evidential documents against Canada's security and its government when the Russians are covering it up? Kind of stupid, isn't it? Who's stupider, me or the Russians? Who is humiliated more, me or them? Okay, so I'm just telling you that it's not what it appears to be. Okay, what these countries are doing. And it's important for people to know, and I can't get to them. I try, but I can't. Okay, I got 3 views in 1 month of my videos on YouTube. So in order to get people to look at them, I have to tell them where to go. Okay, that's what I have to do. I notified Simon Wiesenthal Center again. They're sending me emails. I've sent them emails back, criticizing them and accusing them because they are accused. Okay, Jewish organizations. Okay, CEJA, the Jewish Federation, Simon Wiesenthal Center, Friends with Simon Wiesenthal Center, B'nai B'rith. They are all corrupted. And this includes the Jewish community in Canada. Orthodox Jews in particular are corrupted because the government has bought them. Okay, they have bought these Jewish organizations in Canada. They are supplying them money, and these Jewish organizations are defending their government. Okay, that they know are guilty because the governments of Canada are funneling money to them, buying them off these Jewish organizations. On the web. The Jewish Federation, B'nai B'rith, Simon Wiesenthal Center, Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center, CEJA, and so on. These are all receiving huge amounts of money in donations from these people on Parliament Hill, okay, in the government, to keep their mouths shut, right? To go along with their agenda and to go along with the government police narrative that none of what I have said is true. Well, I have all the evidence to back it up, but who do you give it to? When you have people like Carney, okay, and the other ones on Parliament Hill, when you have criminals like those, and they're running around following you everywhere and buying off or threatening anyone that you come into contact with. The government of Canada's also bought off some of the embassies here in regards to my evidence. They've had to buy them off. I know they did that. They know they did that. Okay, you give an embassy. If Canadians give any embassies here any evidence against the government of Canada or the police across the country nationally, if you give any embassy here evidence proving what you state, they will not act on your part. What they will do is they will notify the Carney government, and they're probably the public safety minister, okay, that they have evidence given to them by a Canadian citizen. And then they inform them this, and then they don't say anything. Why don't they say anything? Because they want the Carney Liberal government and the opposition parties in with them as well, to contact them and make them an offer. Well, they'll say, okay, we'd like to make a trade deal with you, and we're going to give you some potash for free if you just, kind of ignore that couple's evidence and just, get rid of them. This is the kind of stuff that these governments have been doing. Canada is real good at this. Now, I'd like to point out that we saw the same strategy and policy in this regard by Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, okay, in the 30s, from 1933 onward, it did not matter what his security or what he or his cabinet did to targeted German innocent people or Jews or gypsies or political dissidents or the Communist Party, the Reichstag, made no difference, okay? Countries with embassies in Berlin, the British, the Americans, even Stalin and the Soviet Union, and other nations at that time period, 1933-34, had embassies in Berlin. They all were willing to cut trade deals with Adolf Hitler and keep letting him and his security arrest innocent people and silence them, torture them, send them to Dachau illegally, allowed his government to change their court system, and allowed his government to change the legitimacy of the Gestapo, okay? They all allowed this. They all kept trying to cut deals with Hitler to avoid war, cutting trade deals with him for peace and all this other garbage. They all did that. And that's never changed. Here's the thing. From our case, the number one policy of member states here in Ottawa, all the foreign governments of the UN here, their number one policies, no matter what, is to cut deals with Canada's government on trade. That is their number one policy, okay? And that policy even overrules international law. I want people to know this, or whoever sees my videos. I point these videos also to the Vatican Embassy here in Ottawa, and to Father Jim, and to even Pope Leo. It's all very true, okay? And this is why, folks, our world, as we know it, is in deep trouble. We got a bunch of government gangsters, Russian gangster Putin, Chinese gangster Xi Jinping, in with Trump and Carney and Macron, and in with Der Sturmer of the UK, Starmer, and in with the Nazi Chancellor of Germany. Okay, all of these guys are gang members. Putin's a Russian gang member. President Xi is in support of the Chinese gang triads. Trump is in support of his Hells Angels. South America is in support of all the South American gangs in these states. The drug trade, the illegal drug trade, they make a lot of money, billions and billions and billions of dollars globally. We have criminal gangs in our militaries, in NATO, criminal gangs in the Russian military. We have criminal gangs in the Russian security services, the FSB. We have gangs and other types like this in the Chinese military and Chinese security as well. This is a global problem. And that's why God is going to destroy them. That's why this is going to happen. And it's going to happen very, very soon, much sooner than most people think. And, so because I keep coming forward, my wife and I's lives keep being threatened, but it doesn't make any difference, because we have, as I said in my last video, they want us dead, okay? Because the government of Canada wants us dead. That's the bottom line. If they didn't, then they would have done something. If the Canadian federal government on Parliament Hill were on my wife and I's side on this, then we should have been able to go to CTV News or CBC, which is federally governed and owned by the federal government of Canada, and their affiliates, Global News, BCTV NewsHour, CBC, CTV Toronto. The Government of Canada, the Prime Minister's Office, as Public Safety Minister, would have supported my wife and I's attempts to go public, okay, with all this information, to bring it to the attention of the Canadian people across the country, all of my evidence. A government who does not support criminal gangs in a country, a government that's against criminal domestic gangster terrorism, okay, because they are terrorists, all right, and they're street pets, a government that's against gang members and Nazis in their police services across the country, and see that as a danger to the democracy. Such a legitimate government would have supported my wife and I's efforts and would have invited us to Parliament Hill, would have invited us to their offices to share our evidence so that the Government of Canada could come up with justified policies, even using the clean portion, whatever's left of the clean part of the military that's not infected as well, to go after these people. That's not the case here. I just saw a Nazi bald general in the Senate of the House of Commons, a month ago, Jen, giving statements to the Senate about what's going on in his military. We're talking about a lieutenant general here, a Nazi skinhead bald, who's telling the senators about giving raises to enlisted personnel of our military as reward for good behavior. I never heard of that. I was in the military, folks. I was in with the Seaforth Highlanders of Canada in 1980, and I was in the American military as well, and I traveled abroad. I'm not going to get into that. That's supposedly still top secret, okay? I've been there, folks, okay? Listen, there's no such thing in the military as rewarding enlisted personnel with a raise. Doesn't exist. Never heard of that one before. So what's that all about? Well, this general of the military is a Nazi. Perhaps Canada's got a huge number of enlisted people who are not of the officer rank. In our military, sergeant majors, warrant officers, sergeants, corporals, master sergeants, okay, all over the place. Chances are these enlisted people in Canada's entire military see the guys at the top are Nazis, and they're getting them to commit to Nazi policies against selected military targets abroad in NATO. And chances are enlisted people in our military that outrank all the officers are against that. And they don't want to carry out those kinds of Nazi orders. That's probably what's going on. And that explains why this general has to bribe the enlisted people in all our military to go along with these kinds of Nazi policy orders, the same as Heinrich Himmler's, is what's been going on, I suspect. Okay? Because I was in the military, I know. So I'm cutting a little bit of a longer video here, and of course I'll give people the address who I select to watch it. So this truth has brought my wife and I into danger, but it doesn't matter. You need to understand that right now, they attack us everywhere we go. It doesn't matter what city we go to. We're leaving Ottawa because my mission here is done. I'm through with this. It's finished, really, and we're never coming back, right? But I'm going to tell you right now, they're waiting for us in the other town, far, far away from here. And we're going to get attacked there. I can tell you that right now. I know this. Okay? The gangs and the police and the OPP, oh my God, that Italian stewage wino. What was his name, Jen? The chief of the... Fantino, yeah. An Italian mafia stewage wino from Vaughan ran the OPP for a decade. Okay? He had a grade 4 education. Was heavily in with the Italian mafia. Okay? And he corrupted that police force with gangs, the same as Zaccardelli did here. Because Zaccardelli, another Italian filthy scumbag, ex-commissioner of the RCMP here, that guy there as commissioner brought in all kinds of gang members, Italian mafia, bikers, and everything else into the Mounties. And that's why over a decade ago, a decade and a half, when in 2006-07, there was a thing that came out in the media here in the news, Zaccardelli, where they said Prime Minister Harper was getting rid of Zaccardelli as commissioner of the RCMP because he had too many nails in his coffin. Okay? That means he was bad. So that's what I'm telling you. So these gang members all rose to police chief, right? And when they did that, they started bringing in gangs, okay? into putting uniforms on them. Okay, that led to gangs in security in the police across the country, which led to them and then corrupted pro-gang politicians like Maxime Bernier is a gangster from Quebec. Okay, he was foreign affairs minister for Harper, and he is sleeping with a woman who's part of the Hells Angels. And this was all in the media, this stuff, okay? He left secret documents at her home, Maxime Bernier, when he was foreign affairs minister here for Harper. Now, I listened to the story on that one, came out in the media. Okay, here is all over the place, this scandal of him leaving secret documents on a table at his girlfriend's house. And she was part of the Hells Angels. But then the media turned around and claimed, oh, well, she's not involved with them anymore. That's bullshit. When you're in with the Hells Angels, you never escape as a woman. You're always in. There's no such thing as leaving. Doesn't happen. That's why Maxime Bernier dated her, right? And during this crisis in the media of Maxime Bernier as foreign affairs minister getting caught, then the RCMP come out with this photograph, and they publicize it in the media, showing a picture of Maxime Bernier shaking hands with a known organized criminal businessman in Montreal on the street. I saw the photo in the newspaper. Everything I'm telling you has been in the media. Okay, so I'm not scared for my safety because this has all been in the media in the past. Okay, so the question here is how many motorcycle gang members are in the House of Commons? Okay, many. I accuse Poilievre. He is affiliated with the gangs, Mr. Poilievre. So is Carney. So is Trudeau. All of them. All of them are affiliated. Their security is run by mafia, bikers, and Nazis. Plain and simple. See? Now, I'm going to tell you right now that the whole world's like that. It's not just here in Canada, but it's everywhere. I've done all the research. My research is solid. I have thousands of photos, folks. Tens of thousands of photos, okay, of Nazi balds in the hangars of American aircraft carriers on deck. I have Nazi skinhead balds flying F-35s and F-22s. I have Nazi skinhead pale white tall balds in American military cargo planes landing in airports in Europe. Okay, I have them in Canada's military as generals. I've got them in the UK, in Scotland Yard, in the police. Example. When Julian Assange was in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, during his asylum time there, the London police department sent 7 or 8 uniformed officers to the Ecuadorian consulate who stood outside all day long in case he decides to make a run for it, Julian, from the embassy. Okay, and I was monitoring this very closely. I was looking for Nazi balds. I found them. Okay, 2 of them out of 8 that were at the Ecuadorian consulate. In this photograph, you could see there were close-up shots of their heads, and 2 of them were Nazi skinhead balds. The same thing with the Skripal thing years ago, where the Russians were accused of poisoning this father and his daughter, who were refugees from Russia living in the UK, okay? And the Russians were accused of poisoning the Skripals, the father and daughter, with some kind of poison, okay? They were accused by Boris Johnson, okay? There was no evidence, nothing. And then while there was no evidence proving that it was the Russians, they were being sanctioned and their ambassadors were being sent home, being punished as a result of an allegation by Trump and Johnson of the UK, all right? That's what happened. Now, then I looked into it a little further and I ran into a photograph. It's very easy to find these balds, eh? They're not shy about showing themselves. Here I find 2 of the investigators, a photograph of 2 of them sitting. They were wearing these white chemical cover suits, and they were either donning or taking off these respirators to go into the Skripal's home for forensic evidence. Both of these guys were pale white tall balds. Okay, there you go. Okay, so why am I telling people all this? Well, Canada's going to look at what I have to say. Well, of course they will. Okay. There is simply no time left, and it's the real scare for these people should be the religious scare, all right? Because I'm very blessed by God, more so than anyone I know. I have visions at night. I have communications from angels of God. I have them all the time, all the time. And I'm telling you right now, very soon now he's coming to destroy this city because of what they did to me and my wife primarily. And I really appreciate him telling me that. And all these embassies are going with the Canadian government, and they're going to get caught in that House of Commons. He's not going to allow them to escape what they've done. Okay, so I'm just telling you people this out there. I'll approach the Vatican embassy about this video. I'm a very religious person, and trust me when I tell you that God does not. These people who think that these religious people, like the Jewish religious Orthodox community, and also the Christians who think that that God picks prophets, who are completely sort of clean. How do I explain that cleanness? Don't use foul language or are not hard-tongued, so to speak. Okay, that's not the case. That's not how it works. It's what's in your heart and your mind and your soul. Okay, if you live to bring evil forward, okay, evils of governments and security and all their little street pet gangs like the bikers and the mafias of this world, Crips and Bloods and the Outlaws and all the rest of them, South American gangs and the 13 gang and 18th Street and the United Nations gangs and all these other gangs. If you have the courage to bring it forward as a reason why God is going to destroy these governments, that's a good reason to bring it forward. Okay, but for me, it's a death threat. Okay, and so you may say, well, why don't you just keep quiet and just lay low and don't say anything? Well, in our case, folks, it doesn't matter. Okay, as long as I've explained many times to the Russian Federation and a couple other governments as well, that as long as our case against Canada remains secret, then the contract on my wife and I continues. The only way to stop it is to go public. All right? And they won't let us do that. Either a government and its security, okay, are against crime. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Sure, you have all these police in Canada, right, running around arresting people committing crimes, or people are drinking and driving, getting DUIs. These street criminals, who commit crimes, break-ins, robberies, stabbings, killings. Yes, they do that. They go after them and they catch them, okay? But that's all cover, because when you have gang members and Nazis that have taken over your entire security platform of your country, as is the case here in Canada, with the complete agreement by the provincial and federal governments of this country, past and present, okay, when you have that, okay, this means that the government and its judicial system are absolutely in criminal disrepute and therefore cannot be applied. When you have corrupted judges on the bench who are bikers and Italian mafia figures, and you have neo-Nazi bald skinheads as sheriffs in the courthouses, okay, and you have gangster police in uniform in courthouses across Canada at the entry door, okay, and including neo-Nazi colonial balls, this is not legitimate. Not. Okay? Our security, the police are supposed to be clean. Our courts are supposed to be clean. But what's happened here in Canada, you'll note that in our case, we were attacked in Quebec by a Hells Angel and his mayor, okay, in 2011-12, and the Italian mafia figures in the RCMP in this small city. All right, my wife and I were viciously attacked, trying to arrest us. They're wrecking my boat at nighttime, okay, doing all kinds of terrible things. And you bring this information forward, okay, to the government of Canada, okay, and then the government of Canada decides to cover it up. Well, this means that they are criminals, okay? Therefore, they cannot be elected as politicians running our country because they're criminals. Because the governments of Canada, their position is, along with their security, is they protect the Hells Angels and other gangs in our country, not just them, but all the other ones. They're protecting them. Don't listen to the crap by the police in Alberta or Saskatchewan. I've seen it all. The Nazi gangs. There's a Nazi gang, a street Nazi gang in the Western provinces. There's other gangs. And the police put on this performance, okay, like Hollywood, where they're monitoring them, going after them. Like one time a few years back, the Hells Angels had this big thing in Ontario. Okay, it was on television, on the news. They were all in their Harley Davidsons, going to their farmhouse or something in Ontario, whatever they're doing, and the OPP were at every street corner, monitoring them, pretending that trying to you see, and they do this because there still is a minority of the population in Canada who are innocent people, okay, who are not in the gangs. We have 30 million people here. I would say probably 12 million or 12 to 15 million, half, here in Canada are all innocent people. They don't know nothing about the gangs. They don't know nothing about organized crime and the police, the gangs, or the Nazis. They don't know. They have no clue. So it's required for the police to put on a performance, okay, that they're against crime, against arresting their own, with this big thing that happened in Ontario. Okay, I got to stop here. So I'm just telling you that it's all it's all crap. Like I say, I'm going to go now, but the thing that you saw on the news a year or so ago, the Hells Angels in Ontario, and the police OPP at every corner watching them and making it look to the public that they're doing their duty and they're watching this motorcycle. It's garbage, because those police are in with the Hells Angels, you see. Listen, folks, before I go, I'm going to go, but I'll tell you one more thing. There's two different kinds of gang members. Not just them. I'm not going to single out the Hells Angels, but there's two different kinds of gang members. You need to understand this now. You have the ones that, like the Rock Machine, the Outlaws, those ones there, and the Hells Bells, those guys. And you have the ones on their Harleys, okay, who have all the tattoos and the colors and the rings, and the ironclad gear that they wear, tattoos and big and mean looking, okay. You have those, okay, all across Canada. These are the ones you'll see in the media. These are the ones that the media points cameras to, and these are the ones that their colleagues in the police follow them, okay? Whenever they're having the biker gangs are having a big operation going on, or a party somewhere on the 13th or whatever they're doing. Okay, these are the ones that you'll see in the media. But the ones you're not seeing in the media, okay, are the ones that don't have Harleys. They got Harleys, and they're educated. They have no tattoos and no marks, and they have no criminal record. These are the ones that are running Canada, okay? And their colleagues are the ones on the Harleys all across Canada in every gang. And these ones here are the ones they show on TV, the ones, that have a criminal record, that deal in drugs, and, they ride their Harleys and they have all their rings and tattoos and stuff. These ones here are the ones they show on TV. And it's their own people in security that are doing that, because they need to reassure that 15 million people or less in Canada who have no clue whatsoever about what's going on. Like, for example, 15 million Canadians don't know the government on Parliament Hill and the opposition are all pro-gang members, along with all their police across Canada. There's 15 million people in Canada who just don't know at all. They're innocent, and they don't know about the Nazi SS buildup in security neither. So I'll do another video at some other time. God bless. I got to go. Happy Sabbath to people. God bless. Trust me when I tell you that these people, it's too late, okay? Because I've had visions from God, okay? And they're finished. He's coming here to destroy them. There is no mercy, no nothing. Then, as I said earlier, here's Donald Trump admitting to the media, it was on YouTube, stating that the Hells Angels protect him, okay? That they protect him, and they're wonderful guys. There you go. Okay, I got to go. Shalom, God bless. Safe Sabbath to everybody.